Hello, my name is Gale. You're late, but I forgive you, and in this video, my first actual video essay, as opposed to just rambling, I will highlight some pressing issues in both modern remakes and sequels. So I realized pretty quickly that I would not be able to talk about all of the issues I would like to identify because a little birdie told me that I need to post more frequently than every 2 weeks because YouTube cares not about the quality of its content but the allure and attention retention of said content. Oh well, I am just here to hang out. So without further ado, let's not temporize and just get into it. Remakes of classic films, or rather commercially successful once-offs in series, tend never to be good for a variety of reasons, of which remaking a movie for the sake of profit, and profit alone, is one. This sad truth is the all-inclusive, comprehensive issue at hand. Let's begin. But first, I want to encourage you to forget what you know about politics. The whole left-right debacle is exhausting. No one thinks in 4 quadrants. Where we are now is not natural or favorable. Most people know this. I just want to look at the facts today. So when capital is someone's preeminent source of motivation to do something, that person will only work hard at that project insofar as they care about it, be their impetus for carrying a personal stake in it or a decent enough wage for doing said project. I promise that this is relevant. I will not go into too much more detail here because we are talking about movies today, not economics. But this is more or less why the private sector is more ineffectual when compared to the public sector. This is why, for example, National Rail and the NHS are failing in the UK at the moment, and the last many decades. It is no secret that corporations often exhibit traits commonly associated with sociopathy. By their very nature and design, businesses prioritize profits, shareholder interests, and streamlining the manufacturing process so as to be as efficient as possible and as economical as possible. Their singular hyperfixation, the prioritization of these things above human wellness and contentment, is why they display these antisocial behaviors. This could be a lack of empathy, disregard for ethics, manipulative tendencies, and impulsivity. But impulsivity is not at all exclusive to this one mental illness, so yeah, but it does come into play. The obsessive, self-serving pursuit of capital and boundless growth is what got us here, but this only really illuminates the attitudes and environment in which remakes or sequels tend to be made. So what do they actually do to fumble the ball? Let's first talk about studio intervention, the reasons for which studios intervene, and then some examples of this very phenomenon. There's a long list of movies that I could cite here, but I will try to keep it in the family by speaking on the Alien series. And then it is also the one about which I know the most, so I might as well. Yes, Alien Resurrections, the 4th Alien film's production was not as hectic as the third's, but I will focus on it instead because honestly I get secondhand exasperation from reviewing Alien Cube's production or pre-production. One error these bodies behind sequels and remakes make is the inclusion of something in the project, not for the betterment of the IP's connaissance, but for its commercial viability. Including things because you want your movie to appeal to as many people as possible, thus making it more money. Now, I would call this an impulsive alteration. While an impulse is defined as a sudden spontaneous inclination to a likely unpremeditated action, impulsive behavior is also characterized by a lack of forethought as well as short-term gratification. Short-term gratification. If money-making is the goal, then chasing short-term profits is chasing short-term gratification. Therefore, these inclusions are impulsive and tend to be ill-considered and inconsiderate of their decisions' influence. In Alien Resurrection, Ripley was revived because the studio was adamant about bringing her back because her present equated to safety, tradition. These studios are conservative, and that is not a good label. It is never really a good label, actually, unless, I don't know, you're being conservative with finite non-renewable resources or something. Inherent in these businesses is a fear of change, because while change can lead to great success, it is not necessary for it. Ripley was in the 3 movies before Alien Resurrection. Her presence must have contributed to that outcome somehow, right? It is, in retrospect, illogical, but it is also the logic by which a lot of these corporations live, because risks are scary.
Honey, I'm home.
Without taking risks or trying new things, you are going to inevitably hinder necessary progress and adaptation. Ripley's revival was the central premise around which Alien Resurrection's narrative was built. And this is also not a good thing. They must have looked at the original film or films at face value and then determined their notoriety to be grâce à des choses physiques et mesurables. Tangible things like actors or characters, style, whim. There is a term called Flanderisation. In case you do not already know, this is the progressive exaggeration of a single trait or set of traits of a fictional character until it overtakes all other characterization. Think of Flanderisation as the reincorporation of something's most easily identifiable traits. This is more or less the result of studio intervention every time. They are so apathetic and uninventive. They possess no understanding of the logic concerning why a thing is popular. This is why they cannot do memes. There is just no self-awareness whatsoever, like is the case with some sociopaths. They cannot help but revive, reuse, recycle the same tired tropes, narratives, and people, leading the franchise towards an oversimplified, caricatured version of itself with its potential limited by its own homogeneity. Again, I swear that this is relevant. Why is incest biologically bad and not just psychologically bad? Because a lack of genetic diversity between 2 closely related persons leads to harmful genetic and congenital defects. In other words, diversity is good. We are less prone to extinction and avoid inbreeding depression when our recessive genes are basically unacknowledged. Alien Resurrection borrowed far too much from its predecessors, and then the novel ideas it did have were not impassioned visions for the future of the series as a whole, but decisions made considerate not of the alien universe itself, but what it represents in our reality. There was not a single thing it did better from any other alien film from the past, or what would have been the future at that time. The producers of that movie, without realizing it, doomed it to mediocrity because there was not enough originality or diversity. They doomed it to be an atonal, forgettable reiterative Frankenstein's monster of ideas. But these inclusions were not just limited to the unimaginative corporate emissaries that are most directors working with big production companies turned streaming services. No, you also get a lot of directors, writers, and producers, even actors, who have a lot of respect and love for the source material, who unknowingly immobilize the flow and development of releases and the innovation thereof because they wish to honor the original's creators' visions. Luckily, this ruination of works in practice is pretty easy to explain and identify. These loving directors either interpose what is supposed to be a new movie, so maybe a sequel, a prequel, with an overabundance of Easter eggs and fan service, or they adhere too closely to the narrative blueprint of the originals rather than making a movie that functions as a continuation of or an elaboration on the probably extant world building. In both cases, the result is oftentimes a movie that is both very reminiscent of or especially derivative of those or that which it is meant to succeed or precede.